Let's tank Xavius in the Emerald Nightmare on Mythic difficulty. Now, for this fight, there's going to be three phases. Phase 1 is pretty much the same as on Heroic and Normal, so is Phase 2, and so is Phase 3. The major difference with Mythic to Heroic is you actually get to choose who goes into the Emerald Dream, which makes this fight incredibly easy compared to Heroic, in my opinion. For a Mythic fight, I'd rate this on the same level as maybe Nefandra or even Elarith Remferal. It's really easy. There's not too much to go over that's different from Heroic and Normal, but we'll just go over the whole fight just to give you an idea of what you need to be looking out for. That'll save you a few pulls that we got stumped on a little. There's a hidden mechanic that's not actually in the dungeon journal, which I'll talk about first. So, as I said, on Mythic Xavius, beams will come down. There's 5 at a time, I believe, and they need soaking, and the people who soak go into the dream phase. Like on Heroic and Normal, these people have extra things they need to be doing. This happens at around 97% health on Xavius, 80, 60, and 45. So that's 4 times in the fight, 5 beams each, which means everyone in the raid will be going into dream phase at one point or another. Now, as tanks, you want 1 tank going in the first set and 1 tank going in the second one. Now, when you soak these like beams, you're going to leave behind like a little essence of yourself. And these leave like a red pool. You need to not be standing in the red pools because they're going to pulse damage, and I think the damage goes out by every time you get hit by something, you pulse the damage again within these red pools. So make sure yourself and the other tank are not in them, and also anyone else in the raid is not standing near any of them, and they have a general idea of where these are being placed. The tank that takes the first dream is going to want to tank the Corruption Horror, which will spawn in the first phase, and you just need to watch out for Corruption Nova and Tormenting Swipes. For this, you just want to be facing the Corruption Horror on a 90-degree angle to the way that Xavius is facing. So we face Xavius, say, to the left, and the Corruption Horror to the right, overlapping the hitboxes so that it can get cleaved down, because all the DPS should be focusing Xavius to getting pushed into the second phase as quick as possible, because this phase is probably the hardest out of the 3. During phase 1, Xavius is also going to be putting Darkening Soul on the tank tanking him currently, so you need to be swapping this around 3 stacks. You want to designate a spot to get dispelled at so the healers know where roughly you're going to be, and just make sure you got no one in this like circle patch. That's going to be around you from the actual ability. Now, the person who dispels you should be one of the healers who took the first dream along with the first tank. And when this healer dispels you, they're going to take 25 corruption and also about 800k's worth of shadow damage. So they just need to be aware that they need to have a fair bit of health before actually dispelling you. But the dispel needs to be pretty much as soon as the tank's in position, so they can get straight back in and pick up the ad or the boss. Because at one point there's a bit of an overlap where one of the tanks will have to take the ad as well as the boss, so they're taking quite a bit of damage. And at this point, if it was me, I popped a shield wall, just because the amount of damage that is actually going out onto that specific tank is pretty high, so just be wary of that. The other ability I'd like to quickly go over is Nightmare Blades, and that's just the same as the Heroic, and in Normal I believe it's also there. It's just 2 players will get it, not tanks, so healers can get it, DPS, melee or range, and where they want to be putting it is just behind the boss, between where the range would be and the melee. And you just need to be aware, if someone doesn't notice you've got it on them, that one might come through the tanks, and if that does happen, just be prepared to get knocked back and reposition the boss a little bit. It's just something to be aware of. It's nothing too major, but it can happen, especially during progression. So now let's have a quick look at phase 2. So phase 2 begins at 65%, and you want to just pull Xavius to the center of the room. The ad should be dying during this time. If it's not dead, DPS should really be switching to it just to kill it off. Now in phase 2, the debuff now changes to Blackening Soul rather than Darkening Soul. You still want to do Taunt Swap on 3 stacks. However, when this debuff is dispelled, you're going to be left with another debuff called Blackened, and all this is going to do is cause all physical damage taken will be increased by 150%, which means you can't taunt the boss back until this debuff has faded from yourself, or the boss is pretty much going to 1 or 2 shot you. The damage is just too much to take, so make sure you're just keeping an eye for the Blackened debuff on yourself, and once that's gone away, you pretty much want to taunt back. Another thing to note, when you get dispelled, you're going to leave a puddle, and if you're still in the dream state, just make sure to soak it. If not, call one of the dreamers from the raid just to go over and soak it. Just say, like, I'm to the left of the boss or I'm to the right, and make sure it gets soaked, because if not, then another ad's going to spawn. It'll need killing down and soaking anyway, so you might as well just make sure it gets soaked the first time, rather than killing another ad and then soaking it again. And that's pretty much all for phase 2. Also, when you're not tanking the boss, you can be going out, slowing the ads and stunning them, DPSing them down if you feel like it, but that's really a DPS's job, but always go out your way to help them when possible. Stunning's always great, but if you don't have a stun or like a slow, there's no real point in even going out. Just drop your debuff, get it soaked, go back in. Pretty much, it's going to be the same for phase 3 as well. Blackening Souls the debuff, does the same thing. Taunt, once blackened, has faded off the tank and just rotates so that the tank tanking the boss doesn't actually have the blackened debuff in this phase, because it's just going to die, as said in phase 2. And pretty much you just want to be killing the boss as quick as possible. Keeping an eye out for the Nightmare Blades that have come back, which were the same as in phase 1. Just make sure you're rotating defensive cooldowns for the whole phase. And near the boss dying, both tanks are probably going to get mind controlled. Doesn't really matter, this phase is a joke. Just burn him, don't panic, don't get hit by anything you shouldn't be, and the boss will pretty much fall over. Once you work out phase 1 and learn to bloodlust in phase 1 just to push it as quick as possible, and you keep phase 2 clear, you don't let the ads touch the boss. This boss is an absolute joke for a final boss. It's a real disappointment, unfortunately, but hopefully some of the tips I've told you in this guide help you get the fight down a little bit quicker and a little bit easier. Please like, comment and subscribe, and I'll see you in my Halls of Valor guides, which will be coming up in the next few weeks after the content is released. Hope you guys enjoyed BlizzCon this weekend. Thanks for watching.